I am back, and you are flying high over the zone with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, and down by J Lagoon, as Archie Bunker would have said. If you've ever been around Alameda, California, it is a wonderful little seaside town across the bay from San Francisco, as I mentioned, and I love it for a number of reasons. One of the reasons I love it these days is that the City Council of Alameda recently approved actually it takes away a ban against marijuana that due to the legalization, we're now going to be able to set up businesses in Alameda, cultivate. It's all strictly regulated, and one of the real most responsible people for getting this done is my guest today, and he's originally from back east, came out here, and his name is Rich Moskowitz, and I'm privileged to have you because I'm an Easterner too, and we have a lot to talk about. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Ralph. I appreciate it. How are you today?
Doing great. It's as you know, it's a beautiful summer day. When it's summer in Alameda, we've had a hot spell, but it's generally like 75, 76 degrees, sun shines, and I love summer, and I'm a happy guy. Tell me about your victory with the Alameda City Council.
Sure, and I'd be happy to. And just to give a little history, I want to say up front that the City Council's actions on July 5th did not lift the current dispensary ban, and it did not lift the current delivery and grow ban. What the City Council did, with both ASCA and AICC's urging, was they moved the mayor's referral forward. So let me just back up a little bit and explain that. Starting several years ago, 8 years ago on dispensaries, and last year on, 8 years ago on dispensaries, and then more recently on growing, the city established bans on those two specific activities. Last November, in light of what was happening statewide with Proposition 64, Councilmember Odie put forth a referral to the city of Alameda to look into the cannabis issue. It was a low-priority referral, but it started to move the city forward. Mayor Spencer, starting in June, put forward a more direct referral that made this a high-priority issue, directed the city to immediately come back with recommendations, and also recommended the lifting of the bans, as well as specifically cannabis in Alameda by Alamedans for Alamedans. So that was what was approved 4-1 on July 5th. That, in essence, directed the city to come back September 5th with complete background and options for the members to hear. In addition, they directed the city to potentially come back with an ordinance crafted around this referral for them to review, receive public comment, and vote on. One last thing I want to add, Ralph, is it appears the other day from one of the articles written in East Bay Citizen that the city may be working on two distinct ordinances to come back September 5th, and the main difference between the two, while both allowing all the various activities of cannabis, the main difference between the two is Mayor Spencer's features residency. And we believe, we've not seen this, that perhaps the difference, as indicated, is Supervisor Odie's or Councilmember Odie's does not include the residency component, which, of course, is key for us as Alamedans, because we want homegrown businesses.
Right, and with homegrown employees.
Exactly.
Where first, it doesn't have to be. You can't restrict a business from hiring everybody, not hiring anybody from outside of Alameda, but I think the majority of employees have to be Alamedans or
well,
how does that work?
Yeah. So let me just give a quick overview. Maybe that might provide some clarity. ASCA, Alamedans for Safe Cannabis Act, is strictly very simple goals. Our goal is to support our mayor, Trish Spencer, and her referral and actions to move cannabis forward. AICC, a little bit more of a lobbying group, has definitely submitted information to the city regarding what they would like to see, for instance, regarding employment, salaries, excise taxes, and things like that. ASCA is a little different. We're not necessarily an organized lobbying group. What we are is just Alamedans. We're a small group community. We all know each other, and our only goals are to support the mayor's referral and to support residency for businesses. So we don't really put forth salaries or saying who a business should hire. But what we do want and what we are aware of is the city is the one who determines these. Taxes, employment, all these kind of things are determined by the city, not by the citizens. The citizens have the ability to support and give input. So when it comes to ASCA, for instance, we're going to have a booth at Alameda Parks and Wine, and we're basically going to set up video there for any Alamedan to express themselves about this cannabis issue and what they feel. Because one of the key differences, Ralph, is in any controversial or non-controversial issue, especially in Alameda, we're a small, closed community. So let's take cannabis, for instance. If we had differing views, well, at the end of the day, one of us will win, one of us will lose, but the most important thing is we're still going to be neighbors. So there's a certain civility to this argument. As you've seen the rental issue and some other issues here on the island, we're all very opinionated, and for us, with ASCA, it's very important that we all remember that we're neighbors. So Alamedans want to learn from Alamedans, just like we want to purchase from Alamedans. But that's the thing. Our membership, our group is designed to basically do whatever we can as Alamedans to educate other Alamedans and then get as many pro-cannabis people to the city council meeting September 5th. And I went a little off center there, but so we don't put forth who should be hired or how should they be hired, but we have a definitive preference for homegrown businesses by Alamedans for Alamedans.
That in itself, if I stop to think about it, how far we've come as a country, as a state, as a city, progression. It isn't yet federal. Talk about that for a second. Could the feds come in and screw this all up?
It's a great question. In fact, at this council meeting on September 5th, Councilmember Matarisi also brought up similar questions, not necessarily about enforcement, but about legalities. And so to address both of those, as far as enforcement goes, well, we all currently realize that many states have medical marijuana and 7 states have recreational marijuana. So the federal government has stated that they're not interested at this time in anything medically related. However, it's clear from the Attorney General's position that he's not a fan of recreational cannabis in any form. And the New York Times wrote an article the other day about this, and we're waiting to see what happens. Regarding specifically Alameda, Whereas the federal government has jurisdiction throughout the United States, typically their issue wouldn't be with our city, it would be with our state. So in that respect, it's a different kind of legal argument. Now, for instance, one of the questions that Councilmember Matarese brought up is if we allow this and businesses come here and they pay their taxes to the state of California and everything else that's required, the city of Alameda, et cetera, he brought up they're still federally illegal. How would they possibly be a legal business unless they paid their taxes to the federal government? And this is a great issue because a lot of people understand the federal-state issue, but not necessarily the implications. And to answer Councilmember Matarese, I actually wrote him a letter stating that the federal government has a mechanism in place. It wasn't created for cannabis businesses, but it's IRS guidance, IRS regulation 280E as in Edward. And basically what that says is if you're doing an activity that we do not consider legal, but you're making money, you still need to pay your taxes. And here's how you pay your taxes. And in a nutshell, what it comes down to is cannabis businesses can write off only COGS, the cost of goods sold, so no rent, no advertising, no salaries, and other related expenses. But the point being is very much that the federal question, nobody can know what's going to happen with the federal government. But as far as Alameda is concerned, as long as the state has a medical and also a recreational law, everyone from the individual to the city government would be following state law.
Okay, Rich, answer this for me. Is it still illegal to put pot money into banks?
That's a great question.
It was a while back.
Right. Several years ago, this issue under the Obama administration was addressed to a partial degree. And what that's called is under the FinCEN network, FINCEN, that stands for a Financial Criminal Enforcement Network. There was guidance put out called the Cole Memo, C-O-L-E. And what the Cole Memo said was, it is in nobody's best interest to have millions of dollars in cash sitting around or being transported in back of a backpack. That is basically, that invites crime. So the Cole Memo gave banks guidance how they can accept cannabis companies if they so chose. And the difference for that guidance, in essence, comes down to almost one phrase without negating the complexity of this stuff. But basically, under FinCEN rules, a bank needs to know who its customer is and how they get money. Under the Cole Memo, the only difference is that rule still applies, but they need to know their customer's customer. So if your customer is a dispensary, then they need to know who the people are there, their customers' customers. And that becomes problematic for a bank because the regulatory requirements of filing paperwork on who your customers are one thing. However, your customers' customers change things. So many banks have not touched this, A, because they're nationwide and different rules apply in every state, not a great business model, or B, the smaller banks, the credit unions, have quietly started to take this on. And then what we unfortunately saw was when much more uncertainty came to the picture with the election in November, many banks, just as businesses, decided to step back. The good news, and sorry to be so long here, but the good news is the Senate and the House have looked at this, and there's many things being explored by the Congressional Cannabis Coalition now to change the banking rules around this, because IRS 280E, the Cole Memo, and the FinCEN guidance were pretty much before cannabis came to the state it is now in the last 5 years on the banking regulations. And what we're looking in California last year is, I believe, a $6 billion market targeted, and that's obviously a cash market. So I personally believe, separate from rescheduling or anything else on a federal level, that banking will become something that is an easier process for cannabis businesses, but they are definitely waiting to see what the Attorney General's stance on recreational is first.
Beautiful. Some of us, old-time users, growers, sellers, folks in the cannabis industry who did it under the table for so long and were at the risk of getting arrested for smoking a J, this, that, and the other thing, spending time, real time in jail in some states. Some of us aren't really anxious to give a city, state, federal government tax money for an herb that is just a weed that can be grown, that they all of a sudden they want to make it legal because they want the profits of this. So are there folks that you have a group on Facebook, the Lanai group, there's the Alameda's Cannabis group on Facebook, there's the East Bay Cannabis. There's no group for we underground scofflaws who want to continue that and organize. Have provisions been met in the pot community for folks that don't want to come and pay more for their dope and finance war by giving taxes and stuff? We want to remain underground. When I say that, are there organizations being provided? Are we being provided for? Let's put it that way.
Sure.
By you guys.
I understand where you're going. First, I want to welcome you out of the fold because you are not going to be a scofflaw. As of November 7th last year, in our state, it is your individual legal right, unquestioned by any city, that you yourself, if you choose, can grow 6 plants. Now, that means specifically you can grow 6 plants indoors. If you wanted to grow 6 plants outdoors, that is your right. However, a city can establish, well, separate from that, I was going to go there, but a city can establish the right to take away the ability to grow outdoors for many reasons. Indoors is your personal property. Now, you and I, both growing up back east, go, well, even if the city had no problem having me grow 6 plants in the backyard, like many cities in the Bay Area do not have a problem with that. You and I both know that we were once 13, and if we got wind that somebody's doing that, we'd probably hop a fence. I'm not advocating doing that, but kids do make silly mistakes when they're young.
Yeah.
But
or doing it over my fence, for crying out loud.
Right. The most important thing is any Californian has the right to grow plants, 6 personal plants, which immediately takes you out of the taxation issue. Additionally, takes out any worries about how your tax dollars are being used that may or may not mix with your personal viewpoint.
It takes you out of you think you're out of the taxation issue, but that doesn't mean if you make a profit that the government wouldn't.
Let me clear that. You cannot sell marijuana or cannabis or anything we want to call it. You can never sell that in California without a license. However, and this is beautiful, if you grow it or not, let's just say, it showed up on your kitchen table or you grew it. It doesn't matter how it got to your kitchen table. So there it is. You, as a Californian, can give up to 1 ounce of cannabis to any other Californian above the age of 21 with one caveat. There can be no cash or barter. There cannot be a transaction. It can only be a gift. So in the situation where Ralph grows some of the most amazing cannabis on the planet in his house, in his backyard, he has the 6 plants, I'm hoping that he will invite me over and gift me an ounce of cannabis, which is entirely legal. So you are out of the taxation, but let's be really clear. The state's motivation here, obviously, is to receive up their part of this $6 or $10 billion every year. But the state's motivation here is also to stop the black market. Now, they've clarified that the black market is not an individual. If as long as the individual is growing 6 plants or less, that's personal consumption. And as such, as we all know, different strains do different things. You can trade with me so we can have different strains or all those kind of things as long as nobody's making money. And so that's why
if I choose to be a scofflaw, how does that take me, who I'm not really magnanimous in the sense that, here you go, here's an ounce. I would like, this is all theory because I'm really myself not anywhere near the business. It's all a big fantasy. I'd like to be in the business. But how does that not make me a scofflaw if I am going to get my $150 for the best J ever sold, on the market? If I happen to have that and I sold it to a neighbor for $150, I go back to being a scofflaw.
Yes. So let's be clear. So one of the things that the law says, there you go, is you can only sell cannabis in California with a state-approved license, right? So even if you were looking to get $50 just to help with the electricity or the nutrients, then technically that's cash. So if you want to be a scofflaw, then you have that ability. But if you don't want to be a scofflaw, they provide
the ability to just trade it. But let's face it, very few people engage in just bartering and trading. It's just that simple. You clarified that for me beautifully. That's really nice. Where do we go to make it legal federally? I'd like to be able to go on a train and go through Kansas, and when the train stops, get off the train and smoke a J.
Absolutely.
Whereas I could be in Kansas off that train, and I could be arrested right there, taken off the train, taken to jail, blah, blah, blah. And not just Kansas, but Iowa or wherever.
Absolutely.
How is it? How close are we coming to making it just federal? All bets off. All enforcement be damned. They can make their money, their court costs on other more illicit drugs. How do we get the drug off the number one federal list that Obama kept it on the day after his daughter got busted, by the way? He was about to get the drug off that and couldn't do it. His daughter got busted at a party. But how do we activists help to get it legal federally?
That's a great question. I just want to make one clarification and then give you my answer as the leader I am, which is two sides.
Okay.
So first off, a lot of people talk about cannabis being a Schedule I drug, which prevents medical research granting, banking, all these kind of things that we're familiar with.
That's the word I was looking for, Schedule I drug. That's crazy.
Now,
that's on there.
The talk was originally moving it to Schedule II under Obama. Schedule II drugs are not as heinous, and the clarification is addiction, not as heinous as Schedule I drugs. Typical Schedule I drugs would be like heroin. Schedule II drugs do include pretty heinous, what people call recreational drugs, what we would call the hard drugs. So the issue is not moving from Schedule I to Schedule II, but what we call being descheduled, so that it is not considered a drug, it's medicine. Now, to answer your question more specifically, I'll give you the positive, proactive side, and then as a Libra, I'll give you my New York answer. So on the positive, proactive side, a few months back after November, for the first time ever, several Congress people got together from both sides of the aisle, and that's what's so key about this, and for the first time created the Congressional Cannabis Coalition, a bipartisan unit to start to bring sanity to the cannabis issue, both around banking and the plant, and eventually do exactly as you and many of us believe, that this is alcohol or cigarettes. This is a personal choice. This is an FDA issue. Let it be safe, but let us choose what to put in our body. So if anybody, and I hope everybody does, wants cannabis to be legal across the United States, I would suggest that A, they support the Congressional Cannabis Coalition, and B, they reach out both to their senators and their congresspeople and just say that they want their representatives to join in and support the Congressional Cannabis Coalition. The most effective way for a citizen to invoke change is to be vocal, polite, but vocal, with their elected representatives. And crazy enough, I'm in my early 50s. I've always grown up and lived in America. That's something that has never really been instilled. It's been paid lip service when we were young, but as we get older, I think many of us, move away from our politicians because we see behaviors that don't draw us in. But my personal experience has shown that reaching out to your electeds, certainly in your city or your school district, it's much more effective, but certainly in our assemblymen, our congresspeople, our senators. They represent larger numbers, but very few people reach out directly. And I don't mean a canned email or a canned phone call, but actually a personal letter written and sent through email. They actually will read those, or their staff will. The other side of this, Ralph, on the national level, my East Coast maybe pessimism showing through, is it's an odd issue because many in the cannabis community understand the legal manipulations and the racial motivations that established this, 70, 80, 90 years ago. However, the U.S. government also owns the patent.
Look to Reefer Madness and all the publicity that went down
right.
During original Prohibition. And for those of, you mentioned racial overtones, it was all racial overtones.
Absolutely.
That's all it was about. If you want to elaborate a little on that.
I just want to go back to one thing that's really important before we do. The U.S. government owns a patent on cannabis as medicine. In fact, they own several patents. So also, cancer.gov, the U.S. government website about cancer, was updated 2 to 3 months ago to show cannabis can provide effective, if not solutions, enhancements towards the treatment of cancer. So it's odd that they would, on one hand, have a Schedule I drug stating specifically no medical benefits, and yet also the U.S. government owning the patent on cannabis as medicine. So I think from my pessimistic side, nationwide regulation or nationwide removal of criminal penalties will come, but growing up...
Not in our lifetime.
Well, I think it will come in our lifetime. But growing up as I did, I think it's going to be towards the benefit of the Monsantos or the Bayers of the world, and not to the people who, as you said, just like everything else in American history, we're here today. We're having this conversation today because we're standing on the shoulders of those who went before us for generations, those who recognize the beauty of this plant, the specialness of this plant, and were willing to risk their freedom to get us to this day. So I'm speaking about the Steve D'Angelos. I'm going further back and speaking about the Dennis Perones or the Ed Rosenthal's and so the Brownie Marys. There's so much history, and we're standing on the shoulders of all these people. So I see this happening in America, but it becomes personally important, just like Alamedans for Alamedans, it becomes personally important that cannabis has been brought to us, and we've all been shared from the people, by the people. And my fear is with full-on legalization across America will happen, as many things do in America, to benefit the corporations, not the populace. So I'm on mixed mind on federal legalization, but obviously there should not be laws against a plant that grows anywhere and helps humanity.
Obviously. Let's clarify for the people something else. The differences in laws from state to state on what is medicinal marijuana, how Johnny Lunchbucket, you or me, can get a card that says that you can buy marijuana medicinally. California, for instance, I got my medical marijuana card with the following symptoms: floating anxiety and trouble sleeping. Now, those are great reasons to get marijuana. Every state should have liberal laws that say, hey, you could get it for those underrated maladies. You ought to be able to get it. You can't put a price tag on a good night's sleep. You can't put a price tag on clearing up floating anxiety. Some states, though, you got to have polio or muscular dystrophy to get a medical marijuana thing. And it looks like it's a liberal state. Yeah, we have medical marijuana, but the people can't get medical marijuana unless they are severely injured or severely hurt or this, that, and the other thing. So it is a difference between state to state, and that needs to be cleared up. We're very lucky to live in California where it's very liberal. I also think there's a big hypocrisy in the medical marijuana field, whereas for a number of reasons. But that said, we've made changes. We're living in a progressive state, and you're absolutely right. We are the ones that have to go and lobby and make it legal federally. The ones that have been blessed with a progressive mind and the ability, simply an innate ability to choose what goes into your body. Now, I've been doing this, smoking and getting high on a regular basis for 40-some-odd years. It never occurred to me back in the day, well, I'm going to do it to improve my health. I'm going to do it because instinctively I knew that what I was ingesting wasn't harming me. If I smoked a cigarette, I could feel the toxicity. And if you're in touch with your body, if you smoke or ingest marijuana through edibles, you know it's helping you.
Mm-hmm.
And but that said, I didn't do it for the high. I didn't do it for the medical purpose. I did it for the high, for the buzz. Nice and clear about that. You don't hear that today anymore. People just want to put a filter up. They want to.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be. They want to sit and be mellow and be introspective and improve their consciousness. And there's no transparency in that. The good old-fashioned way of getting high has been covered up by this, that, and the other thing. And I just want to say that there are folks that want to keep it real, and we're going to continue to do it without enriching the government. And by the same token, I'm enjoying the fact that the legality brings folks to it who are not scofflaws, and want to live an up and up life, and now they're getting to appreciate the herb as I did, and
absolutely,
it's really nice. So I'm stoked about that, to say the very least. And you're one of the mainstays. There are other people in Alameda that deserve a lot of credit. Sharon Golden is one of those
absolutely.
people. The mayor herself is an incredibly progressive woman, Trish Heeeere Spencer. And she uses marijuana personally for some medical reasons, and she's not afraid to pass that on. Very few politicians are like that. You mentioned Frank Matarese, totally the opposite, looking for ways not to do it. Wouldn't vote for a referral, only second a referral, just looking to keep his political nose clean all the way. So we've had to come up against opposition along the way, and identifying these people for what they are, hypocrites. Frank, good to see you're a Facebook friend, but holy Toledo.
So I just want to jump in there because I think you made some really good points. But first, I have to disagree with one. So I have to disagree with the Frank Matarese thing because even if Frank, and we don't know this till September, but even if Frank chooses not to vote for cannabis in the Alameda, I have to believe, and I've seen this from his actions already, that he is doing what he feels is in the best interests of our citizens and our community. Now, that is good because it gives us the opportunity to say, why are you against, and for instance, the tax issue we talked about earlier, and then provide the information to hopefully update his opinion. But I really want to address two other things. So the medical issue you brought up is also another complicated issue because as many states, even here on the West Coast, have introduced recreational, the medical marijuana laws have either gone away or suffered. California did a great thing basically saying we're going to keep our medical marijuana laws, and if you have a medical card, you don't pay tax. Now, what they've also done is, as you and I know, the last couple of years in California, you can get a medical card pretty quick online with an interview with a doctor and a $25 to $50 payment to that doctor, and such. So what the state did under this law is they cleaned up they took away taxes for medical people because it's not a choice, it's medicine. And yet they also said that if you would like a state-issued card for medicine, it needs to be done by your primary care physician, which provides some complications for people if their primary care physician is not pro-cannabis. So there's a lot to be worked out on the medical.
Instance, if you tell Kaiser that you use marijuana for for anything, they'll cut you off.
Right. Now, that's going to be something next year that's obviously challenged legally because, without being a lawyer myself, if a state says something is medicine and you say it's not and you cut off service because of that, it's clear that some group is going to sue and a court will make that decision. But without going down that road, I wanted to bring up one other point. You brought up the point that, there's a lot of us who, myself included, who started this as a recreational thing when we were young, very quickly realized this wasn't that harmful, and in my personal experience, very quickly realized it helped my stomach when I was young. And over the years, became aware that this was both a recreational and a medicinal thing for me personally. Certainly in the last 5 or 10 years, there's amazing information about medicine. But you brought up the point that a lot of us still like to smoke recreationally, putting up a filter, relaxing, sharing camaraderie. And under state law, even though we have recreational marijuana, unless you own your home, many people cannot smoke in their private residences and certainly not smoke in public. That's illegal. So we created the Lanai Club, and what the Lanai Club is basically a modern-day country club. We're a social club that provides our members educational and recreational activities in a cannabis-friendly space. However, most of our members, or I should say many of our members, don't partake in cannabis, but they're part of our community. They're our friends. They're our partners. They're our lovers. And they love the things that we love. In addition, they also think often the same way we think, and what the differentiation there is, we have a personal connection to this plant and they don't, but it doesn't separate us. And so we built basically a modern-day country club that's firmly rooted in the sensibilities of the 21st century, that's open and inclusive to everyone. And it also, if you are a cannabis smoker, for instance, and you're a renter here in Alameda, and your building does not allow you to partake in recreation or medicine in your domicile, then where can you legally? So the Lanai Club also provides community. So if you're just there, as we talked about earlier, to meet with friends, have free coffee, juice, take a yoga class, all of that is part of, it's your club. That's why you're doing that. But if you're in this other group who enjoys all of the above and yet also can partake recreationally or, more importantly, medicinally in their house, then that provides a place for them to do it, a cannabis-friendly space. And with the Lanai Club, the state has provided a set of rules about where individuals can consume cannabis. And certain rules apply for public venues like they do for a bar, and certain rules apply for private venues like the Eagles Club or my yacht club, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of ways for people to do this as long as a local city doesn't prevent an ordinance.
Rich, a Jew in a yacht club. Who would have thunk?
It was a rough sell at first.
I'm sure. For them.
Oh no, they're great. It was for me growing up in the liberal 70s.
No, I know. I understand. I fully understand being a Jew. It's simple. Rich, this is terrific. You are so clear and so informative. I'm really happy to have you as a guest. I hope you'll come back. I hope you and I can meet and find out more about the Lanai Club. And tell us how to get in touch with them, by the way.
Sure. So right now, the Lanai Club is a secret Facebook group. We did this using underground social marketing to basically get feedback on what people were looking for. So the only way to be added to the Lanai Club is, actually there's two ways. You can go to our website. What you will see there is simply our logo and a contact form, and that's at thelaNaiClub.com. Or anybody is welcome to friend me on Facebook, Rich Moskowitz, and I will be glad to put them into the Lanai Club personally, and they can look around for themselves. What we're doing with the club on Facebook is providing information and community and basically letting people meet each other at first. Now, on August 19th, we are going to have what we're calling a taste of the Lanai Club, a large party featuring all the things that would be at the Lanai Club during any given month. So yoga, aromatherapy, massage, demos from manufacturers, music, et cetera, et cetera. And this way people can come out of the Facebook world into the real world and get a taste of what this will be as we move forward to opening our first and second locations. So I certainly would welcome anyone to go to the web, thelaNaiClub.com, and drop me an email from there, or look me up on Facebook. And Ralph, it's been phenomenal. I'd love to come back anytime, and because we're both Alamedans and a 2 square mile island, we should definitely get together and share some medicine.
We will certainly get in touch personally. I can promise you that. And you can come by the 420 studio where we produce the Comfortably Zoned radio network. And I look forward to that. This has been terrific. I'm going to wrap it up. I'll tell you how I close most of my shows, Rich. I implore my guests and everybody who listens to keep their dreams wet, keep their humor dry, keep their kids off the laps of clerics that wear dresses, and out of recruiting stations, military recruiting stations. Grandkids too. It's not good for you. And those are the 4 things that I talk about. You don't have to do all those 4 things. If you did one of them each week, it'd be a better life. So I I enjoyed this. This is terrific, Rich. I can't say enough and want you back soon.
Anytime you want, Ralph, I am more than happy to go out there and talk to anybody, and certainly the podcast network for sure. And I look forward to coming to the 420 studio.
That'll be fun. We'll talk about that soon. You know, it's all legal.
Absolutely.
All right. Be well. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Alameda and the rest of the world, keep on keeping on. Adios.